We give thanks this morning for this assemblage of our Chartres community. Right thinking, right speech, right action, right living. One with creation again. In our community, we walk the labyrinth, heart and mind together. Let this heart-mind way of thinking, way of being, way of loving unite us. May we become conscious in dialectica, conscious that we might help our lives, the lives of our planet, the lives of our universe to flourish. Each of us at home, in front of our own computer, thinking now in this time, next step, next choice, next movement, health, well-being, safety, security, finances, politics, so many concerns. Dialectica, ancient spirit, come forward now in our community and let us open to receive you, that our steps forward be the good mind. Ah, mama, oh, I know.
Thank you, Apela. Thank you, Ruth. Welcome, everyone, to our October community call for our Wisdom School and our Chartres community. I know a number of you are new coming out of our summer program, so just a quick word of introduction. We meet the second Sunday of every month to create a continuity between our meetings each summer, the first week of July in Chartres, where we consecrate the school and consecrate our lives with a pilgrimage to one of the most extraordinary sacred sites known to humankind, a site that since time immemorial has been dedicated to the divine and sacred feminine. And we are mindful that as a mystery school, we have a special responsibility to both make people aware of the obviously now extraordinary events that are taking place in our secular world, and to create a sacred container within which everything that we experience, political, economic, social, communal, familial, personal, cosmic, has a container that enables us to experience the dichotomies of the world in a spirit of coherence. That's our mission at Ubiquity University. That's our mission for the Wisdom School, for the Chartres Academy. There are many mystery schools that believe that you only work on the interior and that somehow the exterior works itself out. We take a different point of view. We believe that the interior affects the exterior, but the exterior also affects the interior. And that in fact, it's our capacity to hold the two in a dynamic and sometimes dialectical tension, in a spirit of wholeness, in reverence to the Great Mother, that enables us to do what we need to do in the world in such a way that we experience what Plato called the enlargement of the soul. We did that over the summer, as all of you know, who experienced our summer courses in Grammatica, and then the pilgrimage down to the Dordogne, and then with Madonna Rising, and then with the pilgrimage to the sites associated with Mary Magdalene. And we want to take a moment right at the beginning of our call today, just to preview some of the courses that are coming up over the next several months as we go through the ongoing saga of the pandemic, the unprecedented sabotage of the US election, which is the subject of the call tonight. And as we experience a world which I would say quite literally, the bottom has fallen out. It's as if the world is in free fall. And we are really aware of this. And we are trying to do what we can to support you, to support our staff, to support our larger community, not only with what we're doing, as many of you know, through Humanity Rising, which is now broadcasting out to 15, 20, sometimes 25, 30,000 people every single day, as well as the courses that we want to offer to each of you. We just finished what I think is one of the most impressive courses we've ever had by Becca Tarnas, the daughter of Rick Tarnas, on the Lord of the Rings as a myth of our time. We just had the final session on Thursday night past, and we'll be editing that and making it available in our archives. It's an extraordinarily important mythology if we want to understand some of the deep issues that are now taking place. Now I want to just introduce two people that are curating some of our upcoming courses. First, Kayleen Asbo, who you all know from our summer courses and her pilgrimages. And then we'll hear from Banafsheh. And then I will introduce Shelly Alcorn and Carolyn Myss, who will be speaking to us today. Kayleen?
Thank you, Jim. I think one of the things that Becca pointed to in her class and her deep work on Tolkien is the parallels between Tolkien's work and Carl Jung's Red Book, how they co-arose at one time. And one of the things that Carl Jung said about the Red Book, I think in the Red Book, is that the greatest danger to the psyche, both individual and collective, is to become one-sided. And how desperately we need in this time of these divisions, as Jim mentioned, the sacred and the secular, and certainly our political landscape is completely fraught with enmity and divisions and divides, and how critically important it is for us to turn back to the voices of our ancestors who offer us the wisdom of a pathway forward to find the place that's deeper than division, that's deeper than enmity, that is in fact our shared common ground of humanity that can lead to renewal. So the courses that I am going to be offering this rest of this fall focus particularly on two of those figures. One of them is Dante Alighieri, and the transition from hell to purgatory in Dante's Divine Comedy is all about finding this middle path and to turn our eyes again and again and again to those models who can model hope, resilience, courage, and transformation. And in Dante's Divine Comedy, he weaves together sacred and secular, Christian and pagan, both standing side by side as models of embracing virtue and turning away from the things that destroy us as a community. So what a timely message that is. The other figure that I'm really turning towards is Ludwig van Beethoven, who both Beethoven and Dante lived in times equally tumultuous as our own. Beethoven coming of age during the French Revolution, where he was beset by bombs, hiding underneath his piano, and yet able to take out of his broken heart the most exquisite masterworks. And both of these figures have stood time and time and time again, bringing people of complete opposite perspectives to find their shared common ground. So the last of my Dante series is coming up at the end of October, October 24th, Saturday Salon. And it is Dante and Beethoven and Franz Liszt. And Franz Liszt, flamboyant pianist of his generation, most incredible concert pianist, was at the heart of this kind of tension of opposites. Hard to believe, but the rhetoric that was thrown about at this time between Wagner and Brahms mirrors our own times, about people calling each other the Antichrist or backwards idiots, full of the press. And yet all of these figures found their common ground in Beethoven. So we're going to look at Dante and Beethoven as this person, these people who were lights to transform Franz Liszt's life. And the personal exploration on this is to work with what Carl Jung calls the shadow, and how to find that place in ourselves that can open and turn and behold with new eyes, with empathy and compassion, people that we see as so different from ourselves. And after that course, we're going to segue in November to a 4-week Advent course, in which part of what we're going to be doing is the creation of soul books inspired by Carl Jung's work with the Red Book. Each of these 4 sessions is going to look at the themes of longing, hope, and renewal and joy. And we will be holding side by side incredible works of classical music repertory, the Advent cantatas of Johann Sebastian Bach, and then the Ninth Symphony of Ludwig van Beethoven, but weaving that together with poetry of Rumi and the art of the Annunciation, and figures from the tradition of Advent, but through this lens that you're going to be invited in to create your own Red Book that expresses these archetypal themes, whatever spiritual pathway that you come from. What are the things that bring you alive in hope, in stillness, in longing, and waiting, and ultimately in joy? So that will be our Odes to Joy 4-week series. And then we will have a special celebration, more details to come, on December 17th, which is the birthday of Beethoven and the wedding night of Rumi. And we'll have a special event that celebrates Beethoven's 250th anniversary of his birth and Rumi's death, weaving together poetry and music on the theme of the eternal beloved. The eternal beloved. So look for more details of that to come. And I just offer to you that modern neurological research has told us, that the 2 halves of the brain, the left and the right, the logic and the more emotional or imagistic brain, that they are united by 2 things. They're united by music and they're united by poetry. And when we engage in those 2 practices, our brains come into balance. We find that field of coherence that Jim was talking about. And we find that place of profound union with ourselves, with the divine, and with one another. So music and poetry will weave their way through art and storytelling and reflection in all of these classes. And I hope to see you for them. So there'll be links soon up on our chat box for the last of the Dante series, where the fire and the rose are one, and then for the upcoming Odes to Joy, a 4-week Advent course. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Kayleen. Banafsheh?
Hi, everyone. The course that I started already is called Sacred Feminine Awakening, and you're still welcome to join this course. It started in the beginning of this month and it goes to the end of November, but I have video recordings of the sessions that we already did, so you can join and take those videos of the course and then join me live 3 times a week. People are still joining. It's about, the course is about exploring the feminine archetypes, some of the feminine archetypes and their correspondence to the chakras. We do this exploration through dance, through movement, meditation, and sharing. I welcome you to join it. It's open to mixed levels and different ages. I have people from in their 20s till in their 70s. So you're welcome to join. I'll put the link in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Banafsheh. Thank you, Kayleen. It's so important, everyone, that we affirm our community as we traverse the increasingly chaotic waters of world events. We're in the middle of a pandemic, as we all know, and the pandemic, rather than just sort of appearing for a few months and then going away, has not. And we're now looking at something that will endure through the winter. And there's no indication of when the world will be alleviated of this scourge, which has been unprecedented in the annals of history. It's the first time when virtually every person everywhere has endured the same experience and put us all under some form of lockdown. Social distancing is now the new norm. Our economies are sputtering along. Our governments are unsure what to do. And in the middle of all that, President Trump has declared that he essentially intends to subvert the US election. And that's the reason for this call. We are in not only extraordinary times, but we're facing a very real prospect that the President of the United States will negate the democratic process. And in my view, the demise of democracy in the United States is far more important and far more dangerous than the pandemic. The pandemic is a health crisis, no doubt about it. But sooner or later, like the bubonic plague and the Spanish flu 100 years ago, it will pass. But if you snuff out democracy, in the greatest democracy in the history of the world, that has stood for democratic rights and principles for over 250 years, just think of the reverberations of that demise around the world. We have an election on November 3rd. If you're following the news, you're seeing what Trump and the Republican Party are trying to do to minimize voters' capacity to exercise their democratic rights. And so we're dividing this community call tonight into two sessions. One is from Shelly Alcorn, who's the Chief Operating Officer and a dear friend and colleague of us all, who has been tracking what's been going on with greater ferocity and in greater detail than almost anybody I know, is going to take about 15 minutes and lay out sort of what's at stake. And then we'll take some questions and comments, although we'll have to look at the time because we want to be disciplined, and we want to hear from Carolyn May. Secondly, that on the basis of what we all know is happening, we need to talk about the power of choice. And again, that's this container that we try as best we can in all of our courses to hold between the secular and the sacred, between the exterior and the interior. How do we hold them together in such a way that we become islands of coherence in the rising sea of chaos? So that's what we have in store. We know that it's a very important conversation, and let's commence it. And I want to introduce to you Shelly Alcorn. Shelly.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you all this morning on the Chartres Community Call. And I'd like to take just a few minutes to orient us to where we are at the moment. President Trump in the United States did not come out of nowhere. He came out of a society that has been collapsing and has been in danger of being a failed state for a number of decades. And you can look at our statistics on healthcare and school shootings and all of the attendant dramas that we have experienced over the last 30 or 40 years to bring us to today. And I don't have time to go into the roots of where we are. I did about an hour or so on a Humanity Rising session last week to talk about sort of the roots of the conflict and sort of where we are now. If you would like to watch that, you're certainly welcome to. My purpose today is to orient us into October 11th, 2020. I liken this situation to microwave popcorn, where there's been a bag in the microwave for a while and there's been pop, 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 pop. And as we get closer and closer and closer to November 2020, now we're starting to see more and more kernels popping. And I don't know why my intellectual hobbies and pursuits have been focused on authoritarianism and fascism for most of my life. I'm beginning to figure it out this last 4 years in particular. However, it is an area in which I have spent much time studying. And I know that's a bit of an odd hobby. I know other people like to crochet and cook, and I like to read Hannah Arendt, but that is where we are today. So what I want to talk about is a couple of warning signs for you to sort of grapple with if you are an American citizen, or if you are not an American citizen, to understand the tone and tenor of what you will be seeing play out in the United States over the next few weeks. These are merely indicators and they are not predictors in terms of there is no way to know exactly how this is going to play out. We shouldn't come to any preconceived notions because we all still have choice. All individuals in the United States still have the ability to choose to behave differently, to behave better. However, if we are not mentally, emotionally, and spiritually prepared for what we might start to see, we will be unable to wrap our heads around it and make those kinds of informed choices that we may need to make. So here are just a few headlines from the last 6 days or 7 days to show you the pace at which things are moving in the United States. The Department of Justice, Bill Barr, just announced that they are breaking 40 years of precedent. Jim Comey broke it in 2016. That was the first time they'd done that in 40 years, where the Department of Justice will not comment on new, ongoing, or partial investigations in the 60 days leading up to the presidential election. Bill Barr has released a memo to all of the federal attorneys saying that they are now allowed to comment in real time on any instances of voter fraud that they see or any irregularities that they see committed by members of the United States Postal Service, federal employees, or other agencies or institutions. So what they're doing is they're setting the stage for rumor and innuendo, because now we can say anything we would like to say, and they already started about a week ago with some false accusations about ballots and creeks and ballots being thrown out, et cetera, et cetera. So this is adding to the participation of the Department of Justice in directly influencing this election, done under the guise, as usual, of protecting the election. The Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice are the main institutions behind the push that we saw in Portland and Seattle, in Chicago and Kenosha, with CBP agents and ICE agents being deployed in Black uniforms with no insignia, no name, etc. They're referred to as shock troops. They were disappearing people in Portland a little while ago. In July 1st, the Department of Homeland Security put together the PACT Task Force, Protecting American Communities Task Force. And as part of that task force, CBP announced that they were, of course, part of it with their agents. And as sort of part of this, we're also seeing additional sorts of deployments of these types of troops into urban areas. ICE, for example, has been doing a number of raids this year. They just started a new operation in California called Operation Rise, where they're going into sanctuary cities in California. The odd thing about this particular deployment is in phase 1, they only did 128 arrests. That is an insignificant amount of arrests in terms of what ICE is deploying, which leads us to wonder exactly why they are deploying in the sanctuary cities, quote unquote, if it's not to conduct the mass sort of arrests for deportations that they've been known for the past couple of years. And I think we can draw our own conclusions perhaps about that. In Pennsylvania, ICE is putting up billboards now with mugshots of people that are wanted for deportation. And Pennsylvania is a swing state in this election, so we shouldn't be surprised when we start seeing these things happen in different states. Part of the confusion is this isn't being deployed nationwide, so it's easy for people in states who are disconnected from other states to not see the totality of what is happening in just particular states. So that's another thing that happened and is happening right now in California. In the state of Texas, Governor Abbott limited places you could drop a ballot off to 1 per county. 1 place where you could go to drop a ballot off in Texas per county. A number of states have been trying this with Republican legislatures. They're trying it in Ohio as well. They're claiming it's for security reasons, but to put this into perspective, Harris County in Texas has a total of 5 million citizens in it. 5 million citizens and 1 polling place to go drop off a ballot in the middle of a pandemic is shocking. A federal judge has blocked the order, but a federal appeals court came in just yesterday and issued a stay on that order, leaving the order in place while it works through the federal appeals court. In Ohio, a federal judge has also slapped this idea down of 1 polling place per county. And in the 6th appeals court has also reinstated it while it's being reviewed. So we need to be aware that in certain states, the judiciary is helping with these types of draconian measures, which is an outcome of all of the judges that the one thing that the Trump administration did was appoint a lot of judges this last year. This last 4 years. So, okay, so that we have that. So that's fighting its way through the courts. Trump polls watchers, the Trump campaign now claims to have 50,000 individuals ready to go into local polling places to challenge voters. and ensure that the vote is being conducted appropriately. A Philadelphia judge struck down this poll watching plan in Philadelphia, and that decision is expected to be appealed. So we have a number of those individuals coming in light of the fact that this is the first election where the Republican National Committee is not required to file a plan for poll watching as they had been because of voter intimidation over the last 40 years. And that's all the little stuff. So now we get to the big stuff. 13 members of a right-wing domestic terror group were arrested for a failed plot to kidnap the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer, to put her on trial, which basically means put her on trial is a euphemism for execution, and overthrow the government in Michigan. In response to this, this obviously illegal thing, dangerous thing, Trump subsequently attacked the governor on social media, saying she was a terrible governor, and bashed her for not expressing her gratitude to him appropriately because his FBI and his DOJ stopped it from happening. So let's talk a little bit about this. There is a push finally in the media to stop referring to these paramilitary groups as militias, even though that is what they have been known by in the United States from the founding. There are currently 181 quote unquote militias. There is believed to be between 15,000 and 20,000 active members in these militias in the United States. I believe that to be understated based on my other research. That's the official position. 25% are US military veterans. We have 46 militias in California itself. And these militias have been long been conspiracy theory driven. That is something that they have thrived in the United States. The United States loves a good conspiracy theory. I don't know what that says about us. But before it was Agenda 21 that was used as a rallying cry. Then it became Agenda 2030 was a rallying cry for the stopping the New World Order, which is what the militia movement was really focused on in recruitment efforts, the New World Order. And then we saw the advancement of the Q theory, the Q conspiracy theory, that has gotten to the point where the United States House of Representatives had to pass a resolution condemning the Q conspiracy theory. I don't want to go into the details of the Q conspiracy theory, save to say it is alarming and distressing. And as it plays out on social media, it seems like it's not real. Like, this is not real. This is something people aren't believing in. This is something that people aren't choosing to act on. But I can tell you that it is radicalizing a number of people, a number of Trump supporters who believe that they are up against a sex trafficking cabal in the United States. Of the elites, and I don't even want to give it credence, but why it's important for us to understand is the radicalization underneath is that we are going after child molesters, that we are going after people who are trafficking other human beings. It's no longer this idea of globalization as a problem and a new world order as a one world government and all of these other things that they were fighting. Now they feel like they're personally fighting against people who are taking advantage of children, and that is radicalizing people to the point where my local sheriff's department had to post on their Facebook page that people need to stop calling them because they have investigated whether there is a sex trafficking ring working out of the parking lot of our local Walmart, and they have decided that there is no credence to that. That sounds funny, but that's not funny when I'm driving through my town and I see protests and Trump supporters with flags and with signs that say "not here, it can happen anywhere," "Dad's against sex trafficking, sex traffickers are bad." They are beginning to equate democratic values and voting with this kind of criminal activity. So all of this to say, we have to maintain our intellectual capacity to reason, to critically think, and to make appropriate choices in the face of things that are becoming very, very tense. Another fact about the United States that some of you know and some of you may not know is that gun sales in the United States, we have more guns than people in the United States. Gun sales since March, since the advent of the pandemic, are way up. In August, they were 66% higher gun sales in August, as opposed in August 2020, as opposed to August 2019. In July of 2020, the FBI reported that they conducted 3.6 million firearm background checks just in the month of July 2020. So that shows you the kind of volume. Winchester and Sam & Ruger, I have also, they're gun manufacturers in the US, they're reporting low inventory due to gun sales, which shows what's happening. We had RGB pass away, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The only thing you need to know that's important about the election, aside from the fact that they're jamming a Supreme Court nominee through, aside from the fact that they're packing the court, aside from all of that, why Amy Coney Barrett in particular is important at this moment is she actually worked on the Bush v. Gore decision. She was clerking for a law firm that was working on the George W. Bush side of the Bush v. Gore presidential decision in 2000. So she has expertise in this kind of deciding an election in face of voting. So this is important. There is a reason why it is her, and there's a reason why they're pushing so hard to get it through prior to the election. The president contracted COVID, and that was actually the worst thing that could have happened, maybe even other than RGB, because he has survived it, apparently. It's a nasty virus. There is no telling what can happen. However, in typical strongman authoritarian fashion, he is now saying it is because he is special, because he is strong, because he cannot be defeated. And the mythology of the strongman is playing out right now in this COVID situation. So see, there's a lot of popcorn here, and here's what I need you all to think about and what I would like us to think about. There are 4 scenarios here on how this plays out in the United States. And these scenarios are: Trump loses overwhelmingly the popular vote and the Electoral College. This is still going to be a mess. He is still going to refuse to leave. He has committed crimes. He has no incentive to leave. The government agencies that he has been overseeing have been committing crimes and doing all sorts of shady stuff for 4 years. They have no incentive for him to leave. It is still going to be ugly. Even if we do manage to have a peaceful transfer of power or a transfer of power, we are still going to be in for a lot of trauma. This is really important for us to understand. even if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are elected and installed, the drama is going to continue. Because those who support authoritarianism in the United States have seen that it is possible. And they will have come very, very close to succeeding, and they will not give up here. So chances of violence are still high. Scenario 2, Trump loses the popular vote and the Electoral College vote by a slender margin. At that point, the plans that they have been putting in place go into effect, and they will legally be challenging every vote, city by city, county by county, state by state, over the next few months. We don't really have a president. There is no clear winner. There is a vacuum at the top. Everything they do from that point on will be extremely chaotic until a decision is made. If it does go to the Supreme Court, if there has been violence against protesters, if there have been things, and the Supreme Court goes ahead and declares Trump the winner, they will have effectively legitimized everything that happened to get him to where he is over the next few months. Scenario 3, lose the popular vote, win the Electoral College. The people protest, shock troops are deployed to beat, gas, and disappear protesters like they did in Portland, Chicago, and elsewhere. That is going to be a tragedy. And scenario 4, Trump wins both popular vote and the Electoral College vote. And by win, we mean manipulate. And Umair Haque, who has been writing on this consistently, gives each scenario equal likelihood. So there's going to be drama in the United States unless we make the choice not to engage in that drama. And let's hope that we don't. So here are a few hints, a few things that I would encourage you all to think about as we're moving through the next few months where we are. Number 1, your language is important. Americans do not have a language around fascism. The only language we have around fascism is connected directly to Hitler and Nazi Germany. That's all they know. That is the through line. So therefore, if it is not Hitler, it is not fascism. That is a false equivalency. Fascism takes many forms. Your language is important. You must call it what it is. Authoritarianism, crimes against humanity. You must use a more sophisticated language when you're talking about these things. Vote and help others to vote. Vote early, have a plan. Prepare to protest in whatever way is safe for you to do so, in whatever way you choose. And please remember that in the United States, we are not alone. We are not alone. We have many brothers and sisters across the world who live through this continually, who are living through this now, whether they're in Turkey or whether they're in Russia or wherever they happen to be. This is happening in the US. It can happen anywhere. And we are not alone. The time of the Morrigan is here. She is a goddess who does not get enough attention sometimes. She is misunderstood, her and her sisters. She is here to give us courage in the moment, to do what we need to do, to continue to live up to the promise of an imperfect union that we continue to try to perfect. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'm sorry if I went over a little bit, but I think it's very important for us to really understand the types of threads that are coming together and creating the tapestry that we are looking at, and the types of threads that we have to undo in order to begin to get back to our better nature and the angels of our better nature. So thank you for allowing me to share this with you this morning, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Shelly. Thank you. Thank you. As someone who has experienced fascism in her own country of Iran, what you're saying is very important, very true. And we all need to have our eyes open. I would like us to now turn to someone who does not need an introduction. Our next speaker, the 5-time New York Times bestselling author, renowned speaker, and one of the great teachers of our time, Carolyn Myss, is with us. I only want to say one thing, and that is that she has a new book out called Intimate Conversations with the Divine that I highly recommend, and we'll put the link in the chat for you. One of the most important things I've learned from Carolyn has to do with our power of choice as individuals. She talks to us about how each thought, belief, feeling, utterance, and action that we choose impacts the greater. So Carolyn, given our current situation where many people feel overwhelmed by the turbulence and the chaos, can you speak to us about our power as individuals to impact the course of our world? Are you mute? Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I first of all want to say that was a magnificent presentation that we just enjoyed. I thought it was brilliant. And I want to thank you for that. And secondly, I didn't realize the freedom I would have to speak politically. And so while everybody was talking, I re-scrambled my presentation. So off I go on the power of choice. And let me begin by saying that I'm going to squeeze a weekend workshop into a few minutes here by saying what I hope will be some tidbits that you can apply to the brilliant presentation you just had, but I want to build on that. Somewhere around 70 years ago, we had a download in the collective. I don't have time to explain how that happens. You're going to have to take my word for it. That download was that we create our own reality. That is a high mystical truth. The mechanism behind co-creation is choice, the power of choice. That incredible mystical download, along with entering the nuclear age, along with a few other huge factors, have been the governing forces of our evolution ever since then. So I want you to hold that in your mind. And I want you to imagine that these downloads, these extraordinary mystical downloads, these threads from the cosmos, are what eventually inspired the holistic health movement, the environmental movement, the idea that we have to become one community, that the power of choice, it's what made you hypersensitive about every word someone says to you. How could they choose that word? I need to process this, I need to process that. And all of that is because at another level, choice, the mechanism of choice, exists within a polarity that has controlled or put parameters around how we make choices unconsciously. They kind of engage almost unconsciously, so that if someone makes one choice, you automatically will engage with this sense of I have to be right if they're wrong. I have to win, lose, left, right, up, down. The polarity itself governs how we make choices. Part of what's happening now, part of what is happening now in a way that is cosmic in size and unconscious, but filtering in, is the polarity, that polarization of left, right. Someone would say Piscean, east, west, male, female. That polarity is getting shattered. So that is part of what's happening. And part of, contained in that polarity is how we decide what is real and not real. And within that is the polarity of fate and destiny. Fate, destiny. And I want to just mention that because for decades, for a couple of decades now, I've taught about fate and destiny. And we are standing at that crossroads right now. So keep that in mind. And then over here is choice. What determines whether you or a nation take your path of fate or your path of destiny? How does that unfold? Your fate is when you are terrified to make choices in which you are incapable of considering the unimaginable, the unbelievable, the incredible. You're incapable of it. And by unimaginable, I don't just mean the unimaginable, like I can't imagine that much success. By unimaginable, I also mean that you are incapable of realizing this could come to an end. What I'm doing could come to an end. It is unimaginable that this could come to an end. It is unbelievable that the democracy could come to an end. It's unbelievable that all of this abundance could come to an end. It's unbelievable that there could be concentration camps in this country. Part of the crisis in America is represented, is the result that Americans cannot conceive that America could come to an end. They can't conceive of it. It's not real to them. So when a person like Trump rises up, no matter how much he lies, no matter how egregious his behavior, the consequences of his behavior, the consequences of it are never taken to the full measure of how horrid it really is, of what he's done to the Justice Department, to the postal system, to the financial system, of what he's doing. It's never really taken to the full measure where the population should have stood up and said, get this man out of office. He should never have been allowed in the first place. What he said, even in the beginning, should have disqualified him to enter the Oval Office, much less all that happened since, allowing Russians into the Oval Office, one thing after another that he broke, all the protocols he broke. All of those choices that were allowed to happen were all based on a choice that Americans have, which is this really isn't happening. This can't happen here. Someone will fix it. Someone will step in and fix it. Somehow someone should do something. This incredible trust we still had in the government that in fact was right in front of us, betraying the norms or helpless in your own life. Fate unfolds when you are incapable of making choices that where you can consider the unimaginable, whether that is creatively and dynamically, where you can go into the unknown, where you follow your gut instinct and say, I've got to trust what I'm sensing. And that's how destiny unfolds. This country was created out of a destiny where the founding fathers had no idea what would happen when they challenged England as in the days of the colonies. But they went that way. Instead of sticking with the fate of being subjects to a nation they did no longer wanted to be taxed by and ruled by. Fate is when you decide, I have to go what appears to be the safe route. What appears to be the safe route. I tell you, in my opinion, these last decades have been about the emergence of the power of choice and its creative authority in co-creation. And from a totally different perspective, from an archetypal cosmic perspective, what we are experiencing in evolution is the power of choice and co-creation and learning about that power within ourselves in an entirely different way. That we, in fact, are the engines of creation in this world. That we are deeply involved in co-creation. And to that extent, just like when someone becomes ill, the illness that they're confronting brings out in them this need to confront their helplessness and engage a deeper power within themselves. From that perspective, one of the laws that is true is that all life breathes together. We are all interconnected. How we have to understand something, excuse me, I'm having technical difficulties. How we have to understand Trump. Just like when you want to understand a Hitler or a Stalin or an epidemic, I wish I could teach you about epidemics right now, is that it emerges out of our collective. Trump didn't come from, he's not an apple that fell from a tree. He is a dark healer in an age of healing. He's a dark magician. Watch what he does. When he goes to a group and he needs a group, he absolutely riles up the group with his mania, his chaos, his nonsense. And he draws their psychic power. They become hypnotized by him. And all their darkness comes out. He brings out the worst in them. And that is what healing is. When you go to a healer, you want the worst, you want your negativity to come out. And he brings that out. And what he does is he validates their darkness. And it all comes out and they feel cleansed. In the moment that they're together, they feel totally cleansed. It is unimaginable. It is unbelievable. But that is exactly what happens. And he sucks that energy in and they feel cleansed and validated. And when they leave, and they need each other for that. And when they leave there, they all feel high, but it's a dark high. Trust me, it is a very dark high. And when he leaves there, he feels so validated, but he got sick. He got sick in this virus. And I found the timing of it incredible because he got sick because he had no contact with these groups. His own spirit was depleted, such as it is. He doesn't have a ordinary spirit. His own psychic field got depleted because he couldn't take the psychic energy from all those people, and he began to get depleted. This is classic to demonic, This is classic to dark activity. This is absolutely classic. And it is no coincidence that just as we are getting into our own consciousness of the power of choice, the forces to repress choice are rising as well. If you see this archetypally as from the cosmic dynamic that it is, you understand how this force is battling the emergence of the force within the human soul to evolve. That's the dark. That is the dark. The need to rise and hold steady and really get, I have to have courage. You have to look within your own life and realize how terrified you are to make choices. And I have for years wondered, why are people so terrified to make choices? Why do they, I don't know what to do. I don't know. How could you not know what to do? But I realized it's not the choice people are terrified of. People are afraid of the consequence of their choices, of being attached to a consequence, because every one of us knows that we are attached energetically to the consequence of every choice we make. Everything from what you eat to what you say, to everything you invest in, to everything. We were born knowing how powerful we are. And we are now living in this age where we know there's no such thing as a powerless choice. And by the way, that's exactly why you need to pray. And this is what the mystics realized. It's not about religion. Don't even go there about religion. This is about knowing that I need to be governed by grace. I need to be governed by the sacred. This power is so profound. Every thought I have is an act of creation. Every choice I make is an act of creation. And I need to do no harm. And I can't trust myself to be that clear. And that I can't. So I need to be under the protection of grace. Donald Trump is in alignment with darkness. And he cast a dark spell. And I urge you to have the courage to see clearly that that is what's going on. And that it does you no good to walk into that darkness and try to convert people. That they are deeply involved in darkness. What does you good is to, honest to God, pray for the light. Do what you can to stand in your power. And when you feel that darkness coming in you, and you will, you breathe in light to protect yourself. You just surround yourself with light and you say, give me some badass grace right now because I need it. Don't let that dark scare you. It's going to be a rough ride. It's going to be a rough ride because we're not done with this pandemic, because we're not done with this darkness, because the world has not finished this stage of evolution. We haven't awakened to our power of choice and how to use it collectively and individually. Okay, that's all the time I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Do you have a minute for one question or do you have to run off?
Yes. Yes, no, I have a minute for a question.
Yeah, and everyone, we're going to take another 10 or 15 minutes for any questions or comments you want to make. There's one from Barbara Bulk that's right to the point that you were just making, Carolyn. Why and when do you think humanity lost awareness and a sense of choice to live interconnectedly, to create and self-organize?
My company's here, so I'm gonna scoot out of here. Wait a minute. Okay. I think, excuse me, I'm gonna take this over here. I think humanity lost, come into my library. Because you know what? We got too big for our britches. We got too big for our britches. We decided that we didn't need, that we could do a spiritual path on our own, that we didn't need an escort into our conscience. We substituted the word consciousness for conscience. We got out of hand. We created, we stopped self-examination and we ceased being humble. Let me put it in simple language. We separated ourselves from nature. And I don't mean we stopped going into the forest. I mean, we ceased understanding that we are subject to the laws of nature, that we are a species. We decided that we should dominate nature. All of these things played a factor in it, Jim. And we stopped praying. We began to question the existence of God in a way that was just plain arrogant. We ceased to take our shoes off on sacred ground. And we mistook the anger we had at the church and church authorities with saying God has no church or religion. We mixed up that wiring. And we stopped bending our head in sacredness and saying, that really, this is all the divine. It's a bio-spiritual, ecological theology. All life breathes together. And we decided, well, I'm not sure there's a God, and I don't think there's evil, and blah, 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 blah. We got out of hand. So there's a collective of reasons that made for a perfect storm. And at the same time, we never needed God more, because the mystical truth that we co-create was being born. We never needed governing more spiritually. So there we go.
Well, thank you, Carolyn. I know you have guests. One of the wonderful things about Zoom is we get to go into everybody's home, and as the dogs bark and the guests come, and
forgive me for that. I'm sorry, but notice my library. You're welcome to my library.
Good. Well, thank you, Carolyn. Thank you so much. We all love you dearly, and good luck with your book.
Where are you? Where are you?
I'm happen to be in Amsterdam.
You're still in Amsterdam, so I can't send you a book.
Well, send it to Claire. Send it to San Anselmo. I would love to read it when I get back.
I'll just contact Claire. Okay. And I love you all. And that was a wonderful, wonderful session. Just wonderful. I don't mean mine. I mean the whole short hour.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. That was great. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Now, let's see here. Is there any questions that anyone has for Shelly? Any comments? There's one question, where can we learn more about this topic, from Carolyn? I'm not sure what Carolyn is doing apropos the election and Trump. But if you read her, daily podcasts and social media, she's always commenting on various aspects of our world. Another question to you from Ann Pitya, Shelly, do you have a book? And then another question from Richard Page, what do we need to learn from Morrigan? That'd be a very interesting question to answer. Tell us a little bit about Morrigan.
Excellent. I would be happy to. And by the way, I don't have a book, but I have a book recommendation, Surviving Autocracy by Masha Gessen. So I would purchase that book if I were you all. And also The Road to Unfreedom by Timothy Snyder, which is also a wonderful, wonderful book. He looks at the slides of fascism in Russia, Europe, and America throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. So those are two excellent book recommendations for you. In terms of the Morrigan, she is a misunderstood Celtic goddess. She and her sisters. She is, the first title, Surviving Autocracy by Masha Gessen. The Morrigan is symbolized by the crow. She is associated with battle. She is associated with fate. She is associated with the winds of war, the wings of war, I guess you would say. But that's not at all what the Morrigan is about, as the feminine goddess that she is. She is a truth teller. She comes also symbolized by the crone. She comes in times of turmoil, and her job is to get you on and off the field of battle in a manner in which you are preserved. And she gathers the wounded and gathers the dead and ministers to them. And I don't use her in the sense that I expect a major civil war in the United States. But I do invoke her as a way to pull in the strength of courage to tell the truth and to face what is, and to be compassionate and save as many as you can. And we're still grieving George Floyd and Jacob Blake and Breonna Taylor, and there's a lot of grief in the United States. And if there is violence in November and December, there will be more grieving to do. We can face it, we can make the right choices, we cannot be a part of that, and we can offer each other grace. Femininity is not all gentility. Femininity is the courage to confront as well. And that's what the moms were doing in Portland, and getting together and facing being tear gassed and being beat in Portland for protecting Black Lives Matter protesters. That's the feminine that I'm talking about. She is the feminine on the wings of courage. And so I encourage you to learn more about her and more about her sisters and the role that she plays in Celtic mythology, and the strength that you can gather from her in these kinds of times. She was made specifically for these kinds of times.
Thank you, Shelly. And I think that may be a good note upon which to draw this discussion to a close. I think we all understand the gravity of our situation. And I thank you, Shelly, for laying it out with such extraordinary, dispassionate precision, for the inspiration of Morrigan during this critical time. Carolyn talked about the importance of choice in the face of fate. And rather than just surrendering to whatever's going to happen, we all, over the next couple of weeks, everyone, particularly every US citizen on this call, we need to vote. You need to make your voice heard. And as Shelly indicated right at the beginning, language matters. We have to call it like it is and stand clear for the truth of the danger that our precious democracy is in. And we're all going to be called into account, everyone. Remember Edward Burke, the only way that evil prevails is when the good men do nothing. And all us good people need to rise up now and make our votes count and our voices heard, because a lot is at stake. Our choice, to paraphrase Carolyn for a moment, our choices will determine the fate of America and the earth. And that's worth pondering. Holding everything, as we do as a mystery school, in the Divine Mother. And in this case, in Morrigan, a fractal of the Mother, who assists people at times of duress, when it's time for battle, as the forces of light and the forces of darkness engage in combat. We're dealing in Trump with a dark lord, a dark magician. And like, little Frodo and the Hobbit, we've got to find our Gandalf, and we've got to do what we need to do to secure the fate of the world. So thank you so much, Shelly, and thank all of you for staying on these extra minutes. And we're going to close now with a song from Ruth, and then a benediction from Apela. Although, Banafsheh, is there anything you want to say before we close? Okay, good. So thank you, Ruth. We'll hear from Ruth, and then we'll have a final blessing from Apela.
At the crossroads of fate and destiny, in our moment of choice, we turn to our community. Dreams flow through us, creation stories remembered. We are the choice. Let's exercise this choice. Ononjage, Mother Earth, your love your nurturing, your power and majesty flow through me, flow through us. We are never alone. Ancient symbols emerge, speaking to us in words, in rock messages, in the very beat of our heart. In the crackle of the flame and the warmth of desire, let the desire for life draw us forward and sacred reunion. And may this mystery school of Chartres be our courage and our strength. May we persevere, may we persist, and may we experience the glory of life renewed, our full birthright and potential, in accordance with all your creations. Mama. Oh, I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Apela. Thank you, Ruth. So beautiful, both of you. Thank you, Banafsheh. And thank you, Shelly. What a beautiful time we've had together. We went deep and we had a sober conversation in a very important time. May we be empowered by this insight. May we exercise our choices very carefully and with the nurturing support of Morrigan as we focus now on the November 3rd election. We'll meet on the other side of the election. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Love
you,
everyone. Love everyone.
Feel
Bye
the
for now.
support of our community, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.